You go to see a doctor and they say, nice to meet you, based on your genetics, this is the diet you need to eat. My fear then is if you're like, yeah, cool, I don't feel like eating that, then like, well, then your insurance isn't working, right? Like you're not insurable. It's a big brother of nutrition, right? I just have a feeling that this is the obvious first steps into the AI algorithm-based precision nutrition where you're provided the diet at 18 that you're supposed to follow.
Bringing you a reasoned approach to health and fitness. This is the Phi Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Phi Life Podcast. I'm John Barbin. With me is Brad Pilon, and as usual, we're brought to you by the Total T Clinic. And today we're going to review this a really big study that's just getting started, if it hasn't already started, by the National Institutes of Health. So that's an American organization. Spends a lot of money on, I guess, basic research and different kinds of research. And this study was brought to my attention by a couple people, and its goal. Let's just get to the goal. The goal of this investigational study is to develop algorithms that predict human response to food. So okay, right? Okay, so this. Yeah. And
so number one is the goal, the purpose of this trial is to develop an algorithm.
Right. Is what they're saying. Right.
Yeah.
And so the two main questions they're trying to answer with this. And what we're going to do is go through the structure of the study and then give our opinion if this study will ever even be of any value, especially given that they're spending $200 million on it. All right. So
it's going to be more, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So anyways, algorithms that predict the human response to food, and the questions, kind of more specific questions they're going to try to answer is, how does varying foods and eating patterns impact one's biological and physiological response? Which I would say all nutrition research is trying to figure that out.
Yeah, let's translate that one a bit, right? Like that, they're just trying to find out how different foods make you affect your body.
Yeah. Food and eating patterns, and then they're going to test all kinds of stuff to find out what's going on when they ask you to eat one way versus another way. We'll get into that later.
Yep.
And then the other question. Now this is super wordy, and after reviewing all this, I can't even tell how they're going to arrive at this one or what value this is. The next question, and in their summary, like that they're saying they're going to try to answer here. And I'm just going to read it as it's written because it's so wordy.
Word for word.
I can't even quite pick up what they're trying to do here.
Can't pick up what they're putting down. All right, let's go.
No, I'm not reading their mail. So, in what ways can novel dietary assessment measures be used to improve dietary assessments and prescribe assessments to people in future research with increased precision?
In future research. Okay, so we're looking at better ways, better measurements to assess nutrition in future clinical trials. Does that read it again?
Did you catch that the word assessment's in there 3 times?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's, to me, I feel like they're trying to create new diagnostic models for clinical research. But let's see. Go again.
Yeah, right. Here we go. In what ways can novel dietary assessment measures be used to improve dietary assessments and to prescribe assessments to people in future research with increased precision? So now we've reviewed this, and we're going to get into all of this now that we've said that. And 4 things they're testing here are these novel tools. So for instance, a tool is a diet recall. Like one common, and I'd say highly flawed to almost the point of uselessness in nutrition research, is when you basically just ask someone, what did you eat the last 24 hours? And then they just sort of, you fill it out. But that tool, diet recall record is what it's called. That tool has been also researched for how inaccurate it actually is and how much people forget.
So they're trying to improve the tool. I imagine what they're trying to do here is take a flawed 24-hour recall from Brad Pilon based on the data sets they have from, arguably they're going to get to millions of people, tens of thousands this trial, but then take my 24-hour food recall, feed it into an AI algorithm to figure out what I actually ate. So I think what they're trying to do is now predict human error, improve the diagnostics used for assessing nutrition in clinical research, something along those lines.
I'm sure that's going to be part of it. They don't. And now this what we're reading is the posted pre-trial explanation of how the trial is going to go. So the trial
proposal, basically.
It's a proposal, yeah, kind of. And now I don't know how recent this is, but you can go online and look up any major trials, like research what it's going to try to do, the protocols, how it's going to do it, and you can just see. All right, this is what.
And those are super important because it tells you what they were planning on measuring. So in the end, when a study is actually published and they start speaking about something completely different, then you can kind of go back and be like, whoa, what changed? Like, why are we? So it shows whether or not they kept on track and whether the study was opining on what they meant to study as opposed to what they found later on, which is a big deal in science.
Are they straying from their original research stated research goal? So, all right. So that assessment thing is just confusing. But they do explain in here what the 4 novel assessment measurements are. So we'll get into that in a minute. So there's a lot to go over here. This is going to be a 4-year trial, like we talked about in a previous episode. I only think there's only 500 or so people. I think their goal is to try to get 10,000 people.
10,000.
Which is going to take a while. Now this comes from a growing database of people who voluntarily put themselves in this database to be measured and try to contribute to this pool of information. Now, their goal with the entire database is to get to 1 million people.
Right. And the All of Us study, right?
It's called All of Us, and they're trying to collect information on people all across the United States and come up with like a kind of a reference database.
And it's the way they word it. They're trying to dance around it, but it's genetics, right? They're collecting DNA and then assessing that versus nutrition, et cetera. So it is a database of American citizen genetic material that they're using, right? Like, which seems to be the main goal.
Just say it. I mean, that's what matters the most here is like, can we get it down to the gene level, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, so the study design here has 3 modules. I'll just kind of walk you through what's going to happen to these people. And just, I want you to keep, imagine, this one's really important. Imagine this is happening to you. And along the way, would you actually act normal, like how you normally act? Or would you fundamentally change how you act if this was happening like to you? So right. My argument is you'll find out, or you'll discover that there's just no way any of this is going to, when they're asked to act normal, there's just no way they're going to act normal. So whatever this algorithm spits out at the end, like, will people really do any, like, if it's even used for public health? Because it's talking about
doesn't seem like that's the plan,
but they also talk about that too. So okay. Anyways, let's get to the module. So module 1, participants will be observed over an 8 to 10 day period while consuming their normal diet. But in that observation period, there's a bunch of stuff's going to happen to them. So there's going to be, I think, 2 visits. Okay, so visit 1 will include an application of an accelerometer. So it's going to measure like when you move around.
Yeah.
And a continuous glucose monitoring device to collect data for 8 to 10 days. So I don't know if you know what those are. I'm actually about to do one myself and share what happens. It's basically this sort of needle thing that just sticks into your arm and it just stays there. And it measures how the glucose changes in your blood.
On real time. So it's not like what we would normally see, which is, a couple hours of collection. Mm-hmm. These are real time monitor of your blood glucose.
Yeah. So it's stuck in your arm for 10 days.
Yeah.
As well as this accelerometer. I don't even know what that, maybe it's a watch.
Accelerometers are super small now. So it could probably be on the same thing on your arm.
Well, right out of the gates, you've got a glucose monitor stuck in your arm, which is a tiny little micro needle.
Yep.
And then this looks like it's about the size of a silver dollar, and it's just stuck to your arm.
Yeah.
So like you're fully aware something's monitoring your blood at all times. You got a goddamn little needle in your arm, right? And and an accelerometer. Like right out of the gates, are you going to act normal with those two things like on you? Like
Right.
it's just
Well, right out of the gates, you sign up for a study. You're not acting normal.
right. You signed up for a study, so that's different. Now you have two devices on you. And you're going to be given a stool sample collection kit.
Which makes people completely normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's totally normal to have one of those in the house, and instructions on how to collect your stool. Which, yeah, we're not even going to go down that road. So right out of the gates, none of this is normal. This is not how people live their life, right? Then visit 2. So that's visit 1. And this is all within 8 or 10 days.
Yeah.
Then visit 2, visit meaning the research people running the study are going to come to your house. They're going to do height, weight, body circumferences. That's awkward, right? When was the last time you let a stranger measure your waist, measure like all of the parts of your body you don't want someone to put a tape measure around? So again, as if you're not going to, like, you're going to be so aware this is going to happen, and some stranger is going to be putting tape measures all over your body. Like, this is not a normal way to live.
Right.
Then body composition, bioelectrical impedance, vital signs, temperature, respiratory rate, blood, all that stuff. And then a liquid mixed meal tolerance test. And then, so they're going to give you a liquid drink and then test your blood, urine, saliva, hair, and nails, which is kind of cool. They're going all the way to hair and nails. The liquid mixed meal tolerance is basically like Ensure, like a vanilla flavored Ensure. So it's just like a milkshake, whatever.
Better than a glucose one. That's or the fat one.
Yeah, no, the fat one's awful. Anyways, so that right there is not normal. And then having blood, urine, saliva, hair, and nails samples taken is also like not normal. Like none of this is going to be a normal 10 days of your life.
Right.
So that's module 1. That's the very first experience the trial participants are going to have. And that takes over a 10-day period. That's just in your house, right? And there's no diet intervention here. You're just being asked to just eat how you normally would eat.
Yeah, hey, we're going to judge you, but just eat normally.
Yeah. So I think right out of the gates, you're going to get behavior change from most people in this who have had all that. Like that first visit, they were attaching devices to you, asking you to collect some stool. And then like, and when we come back, we're going to make you drink some Ensure. We're going to take blood, urine, saliva, hair. We're going to measure your waist and all circumferences of your body. Like,
and that's their baseline,
this is happening,
right?
Yeah.
So you're already causing change. Not that the human body's not always changing, but you fundamentally caused change in what you're going to consider your baseline. And keeping in mind that I don't have a better option, right? Like I don't really know how to study people, but just to make people aware, your starting situation is a baseline that's not your true baseline.
Right. So, okay. So that what the researchers would hope is you're not going to change how you act at all.
Yeah.
And that the glucose monitor,
you're
the
too dumb to
accelerometer,
realize what's going on.
Right. You either, like, if you don't normally walk, you're just not all of a sudden going to start walking 10,000 steps a day. If you normally, I don't know, have a late night snack, you're just going to keep having your late night snack, and the glucose monitor is going to reveal that. And you can't hide from this. The glucose monitor, I'm sure in this case, is sending data back to them in real time. So like it captures the data on the monitor itself, but it uploads to a website. And I have to believe that they have that in place. So it's not like you can somehow hide it.
An odd thing is sometimes they share that data. So it's like it's also on the participants' phones, et cetera. And then, man, it is so hard to avoid the temptation to like test it out and be like, I'm going to see what happens when I eat something, right? And then you start playing with numbers yourself. So
curiosity might kill the cat for some of these people. They're like, oh man, what happens when this thing's on, right? And then you might stray from your normal. Again, they want you to eat normal. They want you to do anything different. So, all right, well, that sounds pretty abnormal for those 10 days, but let's see what happens in module 2. So they act as their own control. So that
would be their control data right there.
That's
right?
their baseline data.
Yeah.
And then when they get into these intervention where they think they start having to eat what the researchers want them to eat, they're going to do that, then wash out, then not do it. Anyways, so module 2 is a minimum of 10 weeks. It includes 6 study visits. Okay, so you're still at home. This time you have 6 visits. and before and after each of 3 diet interventions that last 14 days long. So you're gonna for 2 weeks, way easier way to say it. So for 2 weeks you're gonna go on diet A, then you're gonna wash out, and I guess just what they suggest eating normal is for 2 weeks. First of all, and then so 2 weeks on diet A, 2 weeks off, and you just kind of do whatever. Then 2 weeks on diet B, and then 2 weeks off. Then 2 weeks
seem
on
incredibly short to me, both the washout and the intervention. But.
I know. Like we were just discussing that many things you do can be like if you just fast for a bit or change your diet, we know you can measure stuff like up to 10, maybe 12 days later still happening from just changing something. So to me, 14 days washout's not that much.
A 10-day period of overfeeding, so just grossly being like overfed, and then going back to eating normally, 10 days later, we can still measure like massive changes in cortisol levels and insulin levels, etc. We actually see, this is a really weird one, you can go 10 days of overfeeding, back down to normal, and then during the 10 days of eating normally, you can still see an increase in visceral fat. So your visceral fat's still increasing despite the fact you're done overeating. That's how dramatic sometimes the intervention can be. So it's very curious that you have these very small intervention windows combined with very small washouts. You expect like a 6-month washout.
Yeah, and I mean, and also a 2-week intervention.
Very acute, right? Very dramatic because you don't know if you can normalize.
I would say most people can willpower their way through 2 weeks. Like it's not realistic. Like if you ask them to do this for 3 months, they're going to fail. Right? They're not gonna stick to this. Anyways, so participants will be asked to consume only the foods provided and to adhere to their otherwise usual routine. Right? So if you do or don't exercise, just keep doing exactly how you used to do. So again, to the researchers' credit, they're trying, I would say in vain, but they're trying to control what they can control so that they can at the end of this say, well, diet A, the data we collected after diet A, it was just the diet that did it because the people stayed the same everywhere else in their life. I would maintain that first 10-day visit has already fundamentally changed how these people are going to act. And
I would also maintain that the brevity of the interventions change fundamentally how they're going to act. Like, you know what I mean? Because you're doing something new. Yeah.
2 things. Oh, there's so much to that. But anyways, 2 things. If you know it's only 14 days, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. If I told, and you might have better adherence. My guess is you're like, I think I can stick it out for 14 days. Like you can move around social schedules and stuff. Again, this study, this is only the data we could pull down from their description on the website. It doesn't say exactly how this is going to go, but it says participants will asked to consume only the foods provided. So does that mean they can't go out for dinner those 14 days?
Yeah,
like right out of the gates, that's not normal. Like what if you stop at your favorite whatever for a muffin I don't know. What if it's date night with your significant other on Thursdays? Now you just don't do it and you eat this stuff instead. So that's not normal. That's like, you're fundamentally changing how you live life here. Anyways, so that's the protocol. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks until you've done diet A, diet B, and diet C. Again, at the beginning, and we'll get into what the diets are in a second. So at the beginning, again, 6 visits from researchers. Again, none of this is a normal life. Weight and circumferences, again, vital signs, all of that stuff like blood pressure, temp. Let's see here. And then the blood, the urine, and saliva, all of that stuff's going to happen. Again, stool samples, again, you're going to be dealing with a lot of your own poop over this trial. Just being poked and prodded and measured the whole time, right? Let's see here. Okay, so so the diets. Now let's get to and again, you're going to have a glucose monitor on. Like you're going to have this thing stuck in your arm like so often. It's going to be annoying. I've had them once, and it's not like that bad, but maybe it's just me. But when I went to the gym, any arm exercise, like every now and then I could sense like something's like I can tell there's a little filament like needle in there sometimes when that particular muscle flexes. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and I didn't put it in right or something, but you are aware it's there. It's not like you can just forget about it. Like you just see it, you're in the shower, you're like, oh yeah, right, that thing's there. And anyways, so it's hard to not know it's there. So the diet A, they describe as has high amounts of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans, moderate amounts of dairy, meat, poultry, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, and vegetable oils, and very low amounts of sugar, sweetened drinks, and desserts.
So your Mediterranean diet.
Mediterranean, this is probably like, after saying that, most people are like, oh, yeah, that's like someone being told. Diet. That's someone being told to eat a healthy diet.
Yeah.
Now, this is the kicker. Developed for 1,600 calories, 2,100 calories, 2,600 calories, and 3,200 calories. Those are the 4 calorie categories that all of these people will be grouped into.
So are they trying to maintain them as weight stable then during the trial?
Here we go again. Who knows? Those are the 4.
I imagine that would be, otherwise the weight loss is a massive compounder and everything. So yeah, they're probably trying to keep them. But then 1,600, man, that's okay.
So and now this is I would maintain that everything other than the 3,200 calories, anyone given the 1,600, 21, or 26 is likely the least amount of food they've eaten in their adult life.
Gotcha.
Like I would maintain most people, even given 2,600 calories a day, would be like, oh, that's a bit less than that's not enough food.
Yeah.
And at someone on the 1,600, I'm sure it's calibrated for the smallest people in the study, get the smallest calories and on up, right?
Right.
I maintain almost anyone put on that 1,600 calories is going to be like, what the hell? Where's the rest of the food?
Yeah, exactly.
So right out of the gates, to me, I would bet a lot of money that most people in this study, this is way less food than they normally eat. So right out of the gates, you're confounded by everyone's eating less than they normally eat. And that's for all the diet interventions. These are the calorie totals they're getting.
Right. Okay.
Right. Okay. So that's diet A. You know, the healthy-ish way to eat seems very reasonable, right? Diet B, high amounts of refined grains, meat, poultry, eggs, sugar, sweetened drinks, sweets, snacks, desserts, and processed food.
Oh, so that's a group you want to be in.
So this is the fun one, right? This is the eat junk food one, right?
Yeah. Eat a burger and a Twinkie. Have fun.
Yeah, and it goes on to say moderate amounts of dairy and low amounts of fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and fish. So literally,
the opposite of the other one, supposedly.
Yeah, the standard North American diet that gets criticized for, it's just junk food, however you want to say it. Highly processed, very rich,
Yeah.
But still, you're in these calorie categories. So it's not like you're going to eat more total calories. You're just switching the type of food.
So if one of the major knocks against ultra processed foods is it drives you to eat more, they're taking that out of the equation by still somehow making sure you don't eat more. Okay. Yeah.
Well, again, you're at home. They're not standing over your shoulder. Well, actually, we'll talk about that. That's the second diet. Also, they say these are masked. Like somehow the participants don't realize they're in the sugar junk food section when they're in it.
So as someone who's been like vegan for 8 years now, when I have a vegan Kit Kat, which is still pretty good, I know it's a vegan Kit Kat. Right? Like you can't. Yeah. Nice try.
Well, like all of a sudden here in Diet B, you can have sweetened drinks and desserts and processed food, and the first one you can't. It's you know which diet you're in.
Oh yeah, dude, do a blind taste test of a Coke versus a Diet Coke. It's not hard.
Yeah, right. Anyways, so Diet A, you do that for 2 weeks, wash out, and who knows how you're eating then? They're assuming you just go back to how you ate before the trial started, which I maintain you just won't. You'll do something.
You might have found a food you liked in the trial and you ate more of it, right? Like it's so food.
Well, what if you've been looking at the glucose monitor and you're a little freaked out by it? You might just start intervening yourself in the
because you're gonna look things up, right? Like fuck yeah.
I'd be online the whole time.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what does this number mean? What does this number mean? And think about it, these people are measuring you, like they're coming in and poking at you and measuring things, like as if you don't want your waist measurement to go down every time they show up.
Right. Yeah.
Even though these calorie recommendations are fixed, to Brad's point, I'm assuming this isn't meant to really make you lose weight, but I don't know. Again, we're only going off what's published so far. And right. So anyway, so then Diet C, this is moderate to high amounts of vegetables, meat, poultry, fish, nuts, seeds, and fats and oils. Low amount of fruits and dairy. and very low amounts of grains and sugars. So this is
more
kind
of a paleo carnivore type.
It's like a low carb, right?
Okay,
Neither of the other two really. Yeah, because the diet A in the high amount, whole grains are actually in the high amount of food. So this definitely diet C would be what we would call kind of a low carb, like really going after grains and sugars to get them the refined, denser carbs out of there.
Right. You're okay.
Okay, so that's the 3 different diets you're going to be asked to follow 2 weeks at a time with 2 weeks in between, off, and off meaning just don't do anything different than what you did, which I maintain is impossible once you've been through all of this.
Yeah.
With monitors and stuff. Okay, so, well, I guess they take the monitor off when you're off, so you can't be fiddling. You don't get to see. The glucose monitor doesn't stay on you in the washout, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, so then module 3, this is the third arm of this. Again, minimum of 10 weeks. Going to go through the 3 diets again.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. But this is completed while participants are domiciled under the supervision of study staff.
Oh, so it's like a live-in.
You're living there. You're living in residence on typically, well, I mean, wherever these research centers are all over the United States. There's a map of it. So you'll be probably either on a university campus or, they'll have it all sorted out for you.
Right.
And so they're going to do measurements again. You're going to get your all the different measurements. You're going to get your glucose monitor again. Like all of that stuff's going to happen, and you're going to go through these same 3 diet protocols, but this time, like you're there, like you're in the, like you. There's no way to cheat this time because they won't give you any access to other food. I mean, I suppose you're not trapped inside. You can go outside and walk around just like the Ansel Keys study, but they're going to have a lot more people sort of paying attention to you, so your chance of straying is a lot less in this.
Makes sense.
In this category, in this final module. And I just want to make 2 points of clarity here. Not all the subjects who were in module 2, meaning the 3 different diet protocols at home, actually participate in module 3. I don't know if I was making that clear enough. And also, the 2-week washout in between the 14-day diet periods is a minimum. So it's not necessarily only 2-week washout, and they just need to get through each of the 2-week diet periods within 6 months. So the washout period can be a bit longer, but the whole getting through all 3 diet, A, B, and C diets can't take longer than 6 months. And so this is where we get to the novel measurements. So here we go.
Okay.
And this is where I think it's going to get even more unrealistic that these people aren't going to change how they act in between or while they're doing the intervention, this act of doing what they're being asked to do here as far as tracking is a huge deal psychologically when you have to do things that you're just not like normally going to do. So one of the things is a mobile food record. So these are new. They're testing new things here. This is that study design. Like, are these the ways of assessing that might be useful in future research?
Okay.
So it's image-based. It's an image-based method that uses before and after eating images. Before and after eating images with a credit card-sized colored checkboard referred to as a fiducial marker to aid with food identification and portion size estimation.
Okay. So that is you most likely put a credit card sized thing down near your food, and you take a photo before you eat and a photo after you eat, and they're training an AI to then figure out based on those pictures how much you eat, how many calories you eat, how many protein, how many carbs, how many fat, etc. I bet you that's what we're looking at here. So we're training an AI based off of probably your phone's camera.
Yeah, maybe.
Makes
so.
Okay.
And again, we don't have that much more data here. Maybe there's maybe the research that led to this thing even being tried Like the concept research would explain it more. We didn't go that far into this. We're just trying to walk you through what these.
I know they were
subjects are
trying to
gonna
develop that previously, so it's
Yeah.
probably a refinement of it. Okay.
do. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Now this next one's just like this is about as intrusive as you can get.
Okay.
Automatic ingestion monitor uses.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what this uses? A camera sensor worn on eyeglasses to automatically detect eating occurrence. Like how Big Brother can you get? So you're wearing eyeglasses with a camera,
Yeah.
and so you're hyper aware that they're collecting that information. So
Yeah.
first of all, do you cheat and just not wear the glasses and eat sometimes when you're not wearing the glasses? So right out of the gates, it's all based on do you even keep the glasses on?
So over the last summer, I worked with a gentleman in Toronto named Satoshi Takano. And Satoshi does React Forge, and it's reaction speed training for athletes. But Satoshi's whole thing is he's a big hockey guy, right? And so he had glasses, and they were lensless glasses, but they had cameras all around them. So they actually tracked your point of focus, right? So then in real time, up on his screens, you saw what you saw, but also a little red circle of what you were focusing on.
Oh, yeah.
And it was crazy because when I was wearing them, right, and, watching my eyes not focus anywhere they're supposed to, like just ADDing around the room like crazy, instantly made me then want to like hyper focus on, like I was like staring at whatever I was supposed to be staring at, right? And the intervention doesn't go away because you've got the glasses on. So I was constantly, it was to the point now the athletes were better, right? Because the athletes were actually doing drills. I was just messing around with them. But it was like I was aware of my blinking, right? Because the glasses were on. I'm like, what am I looking at? And then I was like, oh, remember to blink. And so they are now, when you're doing a really high, like my son was doing like crazy sort of hand-eye coordination drills. And so you get lost in the gamification of it. But for eating, which would be a lot like what I was doing, just sitting around doing stuff, it's you're acutely aware this thing is measuring where you're looking. And so yeah, that's an intervention that is definitely not passive.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
All right. So
Wicked cool, but not passive, yeah.
So the first one's the credit card. You take pictures and try to measure, like come up with portion sizes.
Yeah.
The second one is you're wearing a pair of glasses with camera on it, so it can see everything you're doing.
Which would be an amazing weight loss intervention just off the bat. If you just gave someone glasses and be like, hey, this records everything you eat, even if it doesn't, they would lose weight.
Could you imagine that? Imagine this. Imagine if you couldn't take them off and it recorded, uploaded to real time for everyone to see on the internet.
Yeah. Or
And they're
even if it didn't and you just told someone it did, the weight loss would be phenomenal.
Well, imagine if everyone was like, "Oh, you're going to eat that right now? Can you? You're taking another serving? Like, do you imagine like the whole world?"
Oh, that's some Black Mirror. Like that'd be an episode where then people get to vote on if you can eat it or not. Like
this is a Black Mirror episode right here.
Yeah.
And you're telling me this isn't going to affect compliance? Like this?
Yeah, it makes me think they don't care about that. This isn't about the human component of this at all. This is just about training an algorithm, and they don't care about when that changes your behavior.
Their study goal is to see if these 4 measurements we're talking about are going to be useful assessment tools for future research. But what I'm saying is these assessment tools themselves fundamentally change how the person's going to act.
Right. So it would be dependent if they're just worried about the quantification of intake, then it doesn't matter. If they're worried about the actual proper measurement of what a person eats in real life settings, definitely matters. But if they're just trying to improve that's the one thing most people don't understand, right? In almost every single research study known to man, we're guesstimating at what that person ate. Like we're trying our absolute best, but we're still, there's a level of guesstimation. So I think they're trying to improve that. Yeah.
I could see the glasses being useful for example, you eat a meal and they know you're wearing the glasses and they're not worried that it changes your behavior. You wear the glasses, eat a meal, and perhaps maybe one useful thing is they ask you how many calories or how many servings do you think were in that meal? And they're like, I don't know, 3 or 4, or I don't know, 1,500 calories. But the researchers have the glasses data. And they're like, oh, wow, that was actually 7 servings and 2,000 calories. That's how far off our subjects are on.
Right.
Like, I could see the glasses being useful, like in that case. But if it has anything to do with how people are acting, and you're assuming the glasses doesn't affect how they act, there's just no way.
Yeah, just from this design of the study, I don't think they care about how people act or altering people's daily activity. I think they're just looking at the diets and their effect on physiology and how well we can measure input. Yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah. All right, then. So that's 1's the credit card, 2's the glasses, 3 is an automated, self-administered 24-hour dietary assessment tool for food records. Participants will record. Participants will record foods eaten in real time over a 24-hour period, midnight to midnight. So basically, you won't be asked to think about it. You're going to do it right when you finish eating.
Right. Okay.
Using a secure website, participants will be provided a web link. So you're going to have to upload all that data as you eat, or like basically
it's like the big brotherification of nutrition. It's a little scary, right? Like if that, yeah.
So we're talking about cross-referencing with a credit card and see how much you ate. Then you got a pair of glasses on that is looking at actually what you're looking at while you eat. Then you've got to upload everything you eat right after you eat it to a website, and like as if this isn't changing how you're acting.
Yeah.
Like, anyways, again, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't. Brad's theory is correct, and they don't care that it changes how you act. And then the 4th is just a recall method assisted by images.
Your control. So, yeah. Okay.
Kinda. Well, no, they say it's novel, so I think maybe the images are different. So, and
the AI.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the general walkthrough of what's going to happen and how it's going to go for these people. And those are the 4, besides people showing up to your house and having the glucose monitor stuck to your arm and the accelerator and all the poking and prodding and collecting stool samples constantly. All of that just totally changing your life. Then asked to eat a diet for 14 days, then go off, and then 14 more days, then off, then 14 more days, and having 6 visits from investigators throughout that time come and poke and prod and measure.
Gut microbiome?
Yeah, they're doing gut microbiome.
They're measuring, they're taking blood measurements for hormones and probably cholesterol levels.
Oh, I mean, they talk about, it's going to be a lot of different things being measured.
But my point is none of it speaks to like a public health. Like, I think this is intervention. This is a trial to see how well we can measure change, and a trial to see how accurately we can measure calorie intake. We're improving measurement methods is what we're doing with this. And it's odd because the wording and all the PR, this paper's gotten kind of danced around that issue. But it definitely seems like they're trying to improve our ability to personalize diet recommendations by massively improving our ability to control, either in a trial or just outright for a population, control what they eat. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I can't believe they're spending $200 million just to see if the glasses work or whatever. Like those, if that's all this is for, I just don't.
There's weird flags in this. Like, so when you had, I don't think it was the lead researcher, might have been, but the quote was, in regards to why do this study, the response was, poor diet is one of the leading causes of preventable disease and death around the world. Okay. If everyone followed the healthy eating guidelines that we have available now, we still may not achieve optimal health because our bodies respond differently to food. And so it seems from that like they're admitting the interindividuality of physiology and dietary responses to food, and kind of going with just because that, it's almost like they're undoing a century's worth of nutrition info and be like, yeah, that what works for your neighbor may not work for you from a health point of view, right? And it needs to be highly personalized, which is which is an odd direction to go because it looks like they're trying to move away from one size fits all, and because it doesn't work in application, but it looks like they're moving towards individualized nutrition care, almost like individualized health care, which then really starts making me think that what we're doing is trying to get an algorithm together based on your genetics where your doctor can prescribe a diet to you, and that becomes interesting as well.
Right. And now let's get to all the people this doesn't work for in the exclusion criteria, which is about 10 pages long.
The people not allowed in the study. So you show up for the study and you want to take part, and they go to the list to make sure you're available to do the study.
Right. So, yeah. And again, this is just how research is done. You're trying to normalize so you don't have variables that throw off your data because they're not standard anyways. So to what Brad just said, we're trying to come up with something personalized, but personalized for, well, not you and not you and not you and not you, but these few people that can fit in the study. Well, something maybe for them. I don't know.
Right.
So, all right. So I'm just going to, some of these make sense, right? But some of them, like as you hear this, you're like, oh, I'm out. Oh, I'm out. And then you just kind of are like, well, who the hell's left in this thing? So so these are the exclusion, people who cannot be in this study.
Okay.
Participants who suffer from allergic reactions to or are unwilling to consume any components of the liquid mixed meal, milk products, and soy. So anyone who can't have milk and soy, you're out.
Yep.
Then things like barriers to safe insertion of an IV, like if you there's little technical things like that, which is fine. That's not a big deal. That just makes sense.
Normal.
Like if you get infections or inflame really easily, and like that's a bad situation for you.
Skin issues,
because we're going to be poked a lot in this study, so you can't. Those people are out. Coagulopathy.
One more time.
No, require anyone who's on blood thinners.
There we go.
Yeah. Basically, no pregnant women.
Oh, okay. Yep, no pregnant women.
But right, just it's going to be such a tight window of where you are in your pregnancy if you could even be in the study, which I'm sure most pregnant women, the last thing to think of is like, oh, I want to contribute to science, right? So I would imagine there's literally no pregnant women, or such a tiny amount that fit the pregnant criteria, who also want to have all this happen to them, right? Like all of this measurement and devices and stuff. So I doubt it'll be such a small amount of pregnant women. And even, within that time window, if you have morning sickness, you're out. Then people with severe malabsorption, such as a history of short gut syndrome, out. Less than 12 months post-metabolic or bariatric surgery, kind of makes sense, right?
It makes sense, yeah.
History of chronic pancreatitis, out. Hemoglobin under 9.5 grams per deciliter, out. Short-term antibiotic use, for example, active antibiotic use for an ongoing acute infection, out. I wonder what happens if you get an infection right in the middle of this.
Because they're measuring microbiome. Okay.
Right. So if you get it, let's say you just get an infection right in the middle of this,
you're out.
You're done. Your data's excluded, which would frustrate the hell out of the investigators. Like if you get partway through and you have to start over. If it takes one person roughly 6 months to get through all of this, and you're trying to do like thousands of people, it's going to take years to do that. Even with multi-centered and tons of like investigators and lots of resources, it's going to take a long time. Not to mention what we just mentioned about people that might, I don't know, get an infection, something happens, they drop out.
Yeah.
Here we go. Possible ethanol use disorder, defined as alcohol use disorder, so that's out.
Wait, hey, during the trial, are they drinking? Did they make any mention?
They didn't mention it. I mean, I guess you drink like on your normal, how you would normally drink in the washouts, but when they're giving you a diet, I don't think there's alcohol in there. I don't know. It might be. They don't get that in detail. Okay. My guess is they're not going to add that in. Like that's such a huge confounder.
Yeah, no, I just wondering if they're adding it out, which then is also a confounder for the average person. So, yeah.
History of surgery for the treatment of obesity, out.
Surgery,
such as if you're already following a special diet. Hypertension above 160 over 100, out.
Okay.
Exacerbation of underlying gastrointestinal disease, including inflammatory bowel disease or malabsorptive disorder, out. Previous diagnosed diabetes mellitus with HbA1c above 12% at screening out.
Okay.
Newly diagnosed diabetes within the past 3 months of, or HbA1c above 6.5% out.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
6.5, eh?
We're really chopping a lot of people out of this. So basically,
Yeah.
whatever they come up with here, if you got diabetes, just can't apply to you at all.
Close to it. Yeah.
Like, how many people are we already talking about here, right?
Yeah.
Like, didn't they say like a huge, what's it, 30 or 40 million undiagnosed people with diabetes in the country? Like,
Yep.
how many of them are they going to run into? And that's the first time they find out their HbA1c.
Well, I think in their own write-up, they were saying that 42% of the population is obese. So, yeah.
Well, then who the hell is this for? If all of these people can't be in it, right?
Okay. So we're just taking a huge chunk. We've got a normalized, healthy group of people.
We're not there yet. There's more. Participants with type 1 or type 2 diabetes who are using insulin, which that's okay. So it's not for you either. Participants aged equal to or above 75 years old with type 2 diabetes. Okay, you're out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously. Yeah.
So now at module 3, the final phase, this is the one where each 2 weeks
you go into the lab.
Right. So for 2 weeks, you're in the lab, then you wash out at home for 2 weeks, and you go back in and you do the diets A, B, and C for 2 weeks at the lab, like in the residence.
Right.
So it's all that stuff. And then another exclusion is an inability to abstain from tobacco or nicotine, vaping, alcohol, or illicit drug use.
So no smokers, no potheads, no drinkers.
Yeah. So you can't have a drink when you're in the you can't have a drink when you're going to the residence.
2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
I wonder what percentage of the U.S. population goes 2 weeks without a drink. That'd be interesting to look up.
Well, I mean, that's going to change. Again, they don't have enough data here to tell us if you're supposed to not drink in the at home version.
Yeah, but I mean, just even the 2 weeks while you're there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's going to fundamentally, like, if being in the lab matters, and the major difference is like in the lab you just can't drink, but at home people were drinking. Well, that's a huge confounding right there. So, and then just the same thing, like anything that you just can't, that's going to exclude you, that
can't
you
live without for 2 weeks, basically. Yeah.
They got even more specific with depression this time.
So this isn't a populational health study, nor is it an individual health study. This is a study to gather data on what they consider a human without underlying factors, so they can train an algorithm. So it's to me, it's an admission that giving dietary guidelines does not work, that we've seen a massive increase in obesity, that increase in obesity has hit a final financial breaking point for at least the US. And the answer is training up algorithms and AI to then prescribe nutrition on an individual basis. That's where this is the chat GPT of nutritional medicine is what they're trying to develop right now. And they need that baseline data. So they need to be able to feed the system enough baseline data that's unconfounded to your giant list of confounders that they omitted people from, so that they can train an AI system, so that AI system can eventually, for every individual in the United States, prescribe them a diet solely based off of their genetics, as, I guess, figured out by this algorithm. I think that's what we're looking at here, right? We're not looking. This is a study not to intervene now. This is a study to intervene in 10 to 15 years. That's, I guess, maybe fast. Yeah.
Take a long time to do it. So
like, no one's coming out of this trial like, oh, I was in a trial and I got really lean, or I got healthier. That's not the point. The point is to get data points for an algorithm.
Right. Yeah. Right. So let's to restate what the goal was, that to develop algorithms that predict human response to food.
Yeah.
And then those two main questions that, how does varying foods and eating patterns impact one's biological and physiological response? I mean, I would say the varying foods and eating patterns are highly confounded by just the study itself, after I just walked you through how many things are going on there.
And the 12-day period is so, they're looking for acute data, right? They're looking for not a chronic effect of any specific food. They're looking for very acute changes in physiology that are quickly measurable for an AI system. Now, there might be a follow-up study to this that's more long-term, but it seems like just training up an algorithm.
Well, this is like, who changes their diet every 2 weeks? Like, what kind of life is
I don't
that?
think
Nobody does that.
I don't think there's any need for this study to replicate real world situations in any way.
It's the furthest. But okay, so then, I'm glad you just said that. So this study really doesn't replicate anything to do with the real world. No. Then in the study detailed description, so this is part of the summary again that I didn't read before, but here now listen. The resulting artificial intelligence algorithms.
There we go.
If it actually works, right? To predict individualized responses to food will provide a foundation to create customized dietary approaches to optimize short and long-term health.
Yeah, so we are moving nutrition into the sort of a precision nutrition model, and we're medicalizing nutrition again because they've just come to realize that giving guidelines doesn't work, and the next step up from a guideline is a prescription, and that will open up a whole. I mean, I don't think for the average listener or viewer right now, this isn't going to help you currently in any way, but what it will do eventually is, on the odd sort of scenario where you go to see a doctor and they say, nice to meet you, based on your genetics, this is the diet you need to eat. My fear then is if you're like, yeah, cool, I don't feel like eating that, then like, well, then your insurance isn't working, right? Like you're not insurable, like, or fine, but you have to pay more for Medicare, or like there's a very odd feel to an algorithm. It's a big brother of nutrition, right? But in the short term, what I see is just a blanket admission that giving dietary guidelines does not change how someone eats.
Right. So then they're just going to give more dietary guidelines here, because again, it's not.
But now prescriptions. That's my
But it's not personalized. The data is collected on. We just went through all the people it's not for.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not for anyone with diabetes. It's not for anyone with HbA1cs in certain ranges. It's not for anyone on chronic medication. No one on blood thinners. It's like the amount of people it's not for. Like, I would argue those are all the people that need a little bit of help.
Yeah. Okay. And then the counter argument to that is, and it's the one I despise, and it's the best way to battle obesity is never become obese in the first place. And
right.
It's such a useless, you want to hit people when they say that. But the same thing, the best way to battle disease is to never become diseased in the first place. So you wonder, who are these prescriptions for? Is it to prevent, right? Is it to start from give a healthy person who's done a great job of eating and then be like, yes, cool, we're still going to tell you what you can and cannot eat.
Well, given the fact that diets A, B, and C, one's just kind of a reasonable balanced diet. One of them is just lower carb, specifically cut out like sugar and refined grains. And the other ones just eat junk. What do they think they're going to get? They already know what the answer is going to be. Like, first of all, I highly doubt, and I'm sure they doubt it too, that anyone's going to thrive on diet B. Like the one with the sugar and all, like,
yeah,
like
14 days. Yeah. Oh, this is my other issue. Sorry. And you know what? Great point. And I wanted to bring this up. So imagine you go into this trial and you are a follower of various people on social media, on Instagram and Twitter, et cetera, and you're kind of feeling like a meat-heavy diet is the ancestral way a human should eat for optimal health. So based on that little inkling in the back of your head, and you get put in the high fruit and veggie group, you can be like, well, I don't feel right. Or you get put in the high junk food group. You're like, this doesn't feel right. Vice versa, let's say you were contemplating veganism and you're like, yeah, maybe that's a good move. And then you get put in the high meat. Our preconceived notions of each of those diets, I think, affects our physiologic response to those diets. And so I think that's going to be a confounder. But I don't think they're worried about it. I think they're literally just roboting humans into, okay, input is X, output is Y, let's measure it. I think that's
right.
And
I would say that the order that you go through diets A, B, and C matters.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, only because it's so, the washouts aren't that long, the intervention's not that long. I could imagine the order you eat these in, you'll get different results.
Yep.
Like
the conspiracy theorist in me wants to think that they're looking at the rise of the nutritional influencer and be like, no, we're just going to get data and this will all move into the realm of medical interventions, right? And there'll be no more talking about nutrition online, right? And it's just we just have the algorithm will answer it for you. That's the direction I feel like it's going. And I see various numbers thrown out, and they're so big they're meaningless to me. So whether it's $1 billion or $1 trillion or multiple trillions of the financial burden of obesity, it's going to hit a tipping point where it has to be solved, and not for the benefit of the individual, but for the benefit of that government, that country, et cetera, just paying for that. I mean, a great way to think of it would be, how full would the hospitals be if we had solved for obesity in 1990 type of thing, right? So, but then we know that, again, it's weird because there's jobs dependent on that. So I don't have the answer. I just have a feeling that this is the obvious first steps into the AI algorithm based precision nutrition, where you're provided the diet at 18 that you're supposed to follow.
Yeah. And I mean, not to mention that people can change over time too.
Oh,
so,
absolutely. I mean, they did mention also trying to tease out, because the one thing you didn't point out is that it's in multiple different sites across the states, right? Like 12 different research centers. Yeah. They are trying to tease out the geography, the age, the environment, all that. It would be wicked cool. I don't think they're doing it. If you were a participant in New York, and then a year and a half later, you're also again a participant in Louisiana, and be like, did it change? Like what were your numbers in New York versus Louisiana, and see just how much of a difference that makes. That to me would be groundbreaking research, but I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on and on about that. Like, I've moved from one place to another where my daily steps went from 2,000 to 10,000 a day. So that's a huge confounder just based on where I live. Oh,
we have buddies who fly to like Miami practically monthly, assholes. And like their step count in Miami is like 16,000 a day, and their step count up here in Toronto is like 5,000. Right.
Well, I have a friend who moved from Ontario to San Jose, California, and he has eczema in Ontario and no eczema in California. So who knows what else is happening with your interaction to the environment if something that chronic can just disappear. Anyway, so we should wrap this up. What is that? Was that your closing thoughts, or do you have another?
Yeah, my closing thoughts is that this will not provide any useful data in the short term for any listener, and instead it's a attempt to start to personalize nutrition prescriptions as opposed to guidelines based on an AI algorithm.
And then I'll just add, I don't know that this is going to be very useful, and it seems to take us even further away from what I think the goal overall in health and fitness is. Just get back to food is food.
Yes, absolutely. I think the most interesting part of this entire trial is the admission that if everyone followed the healthy eating guidelines that we have available now, we still may not achieve optimal health because our bodies respond differently to food. And that line then makes every eating guideline obsolete.
Except for the one they think they're going to come up with here.
Oh yeah, well, we don't think they're going to come up with one. I think they're going to come up with 348 million or whatever the population of the states is, right? Like, but in the meantime, it for anyone who's trying to tell people, hey, that the best thing here is conscious consumption and just being aware of what you're eating. Now that people are like, well, it doesn't matter because everybody's different. You're like, oh shoot, okay, yeah, I guess they just did say that. So. Right back to what you and I always say, which is just try to eat the foods that make you feel good and make you look good, and that's it. And what you eat might be different than what your friends eat, and that's cool.
And that's all that matters. And you know, whatever 5, 6, 7, 8 years when this comes out, I doubt it's going to change your life materially at all. It's still you and how you interact with your environment and your food.
I have a bet for you. Okay. I have a bet that some startup using ChatGPT in the next 5 years will beat these guys to the punch, and will be able to crowdsource. You know how Waze works? Like they will crowdsource the data and have a better algorithm before this is done
for free.
For free, yeah. Crowdsourced, just like the way Waze worked with thousands of people inputting data, and somehow it'll tease it out better, without all the restrictions that you pointed out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's a good place to leave it. So for Brad Pilon, I'm John Barbin, and that's your Phi Life Podcast.